各位记者朋友，大家
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's press briefing. Questions, please.
谢谢发言人。中新社记者提问。
China News Service. Recently, the U.S. announced expanded sanctions targeting Cuba's global medical missions, labeling them forced labor, while also threatening visa restrictions for current or former Cuban government officials, foreign officials, and their immediate family members. Recently, Foreign Minister of CARICOM state also met with U.S. Special Envoy for Latin America with some specific focus on the U.S. policies on Cuba. Several leaders from CARICOM states also criticized the U.S. policy. What's your comment? I noted that the director of Cuba's Central Unit for Medical Cooperation said that during the past 60 years, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, Cuba, while overcoming its own difficulties, sent over 60,000 medical personnel to over 60 countries, provided medical services for over 230 million people, and performed over 17 million surgeries, which saved the lives of more than 12 million people. Cuba's global medical missions are welcomed by the governments and people of Caribbean states. The so-called forced labor has been used as an excuse and tool for the U.S. to pursue supremacy and suppressing dissent. Relevant measures of the U.S. is an extension and escalation of its over 60-year sanctions and blockade on Cuba. China opposes coercive diplomacy and urges the U.S. to stop immediately the blockade and sanctions on Cuba in any name and remove Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. The U.S. should do more to improve its ties with Cuba and offer real assistance to the Caribbean states. Next one, please.
RIA Novosti. Russian President Putin and U.S. President Trump spoke on phone on March 18. The discussion focused on the normalization of Russia-U.S. relations and the situation in Ukraine. What is China's comment? How much of a difference will this make in resolving the Ukraine crisis?
We noted relevant reports. China from the very beginning advocates the resolution of the crisis through dialogue and negotiations. We're glad to see all efforts that leads to ceasefire and believe that this is a necessary step to realize peace. Next one, please.
瑞典电视台的 Tilde
Chinese companies have started mining on Ukraine territory occupied by Russia. This violates international law. What is the Foreign Ministry's comment on this?
具体情况
I'm not familiar with the specifics that you mentioned on the Ukraine crisis. China's position is consistent and clear. The 4 points proposal made by President Xi Jinping is the fundamental guidance for China. Next one, please.
谢谢发言人。共同社的记者提问。
Kyodo News, it's reported that during his visit to the U.S. in February, Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba and U.S. President Trump jointly declared that the two countries would oppose the unilateral change of status quo in the Taiwan Strait by the Chinese government through force or coercion. And Japanese maritime self-defense force vessels sailed through the Taiwan Strait in early February. Against such a background, with what determination did Foreign Minister Wang Yi made the decision to visit Japan? How will China and Japan bridge differences in your talks?
Foreign Minister Wang Yi will travel to Japan to attend the 11th Trilateral Foreign Ministers meeting and co-chair the 6th China-Japan Economic High-Level Dialogue. We have released information yesterday which you may refer to. You also talked about the Taiwan-related issues. These are China's internal affairs that brook no external interference. Japan has had a colonial rule over Taiwan, and it has committed egregious crimes to Chinese people, it needs to exercise extra prudence on that. And on the specific issues that you mentioned, China has made products with the Japanese side and made clear its sole position. At the moment, the bilateral ties are the key stage of improvement and development. We hope Japan can take concrete actions to deliver on its commitment of comprehensively promoting the strategic and mutually beneficial bilateral ties and building a constructive and stable China-Japan ties that fits the need of the new era and overcome disturbance of the improvement and development of bilateral ties. Next one, please.
Thank you. A question from AFP.
法新社基里巴斯政府表示，他正在与中方探索建立深海采矿合作伙伴关系，中方是否确认此事，并提供更多细节。
据国际法
China always engages in practical deep-sea cooperation with relevant country in accordance with international law and under the principle of mutual benefit. On the cooperation between China and Kiribati, the cooperation is also based on inclusiveness and mutual benefit. Next one, please.
Question from Reuters.
路透社，一个由泰国部级官员组成的代表团已经抵达了新疆，会见上个月遣返回中国的维吾尔人。你能否确认这些泰国的部长们已经抵达新疆？泰方表示，部长们只会见5个人，而最近从泰国返回中国的维吾尔人有40名。这是什么原因呢？这40名维吾尔人目前在哪里？与家人还是一起被集中关押？这些维吾尔人会经历什么？他们将如何在中国恢复生活？ I'd refer you to competent authorities for specifics about the visit. On the repatriation, China has shared information on multiple occasions. It's the normal law enforcement cooperation between China and Thailand, and is in line with the laws of the two countries' international law and international practice. The lawful rights of relevant persons are fully protected. Next question, please.
谢谢欢迎的共同社的记者提问。
Kyoto News. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the victory of China's war of resistance against the Japanese aggression. Some Japanese analysts say that the Chinese government's diplomatic attitude toward Japan will become more severe after the anniversary on September 3rd. How do you see this?
This year marks the victory of China's war of resistance against Japanese aggression and world anti-fascist war. Japan needs to be responsible to history, see squarely and reflect on its statements and commitment on the history of aggression, and be committed to the path of peaceful development, and take concrete actions to win trust from Asian neighbors and the international community. We hope Japan can work with China, uphold the spirit of see squarely the history and going forward to the future in order to promote the sound and steady development of China-Japan relations. Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Anything else?
那好，今天的记者。
Then let's call it a day. Thank you for coming.